Jai Hind, this is Brigadier Hemant Mahajan. I welcome you to another session on national security. Today we are going to talk about Chhatrapati Sri Shivaji Maharaj, his military tactics, his enemy, the way he used geography for attaining Swarajya and many other aspects. Why are we talking about this subject today? Because today is the 393rd birth anniversary Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, and it is celebrated in a big way in Maharashtra. Unfortunately, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's bravery, his leadership, his strategy, his tactics has only been confined to the state of Maharashtra. It is high time we are able to project Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj as not only a hero for Maharashtra but also for the whole of the country. I belong to the Maratha Light Infantry, and Maratha Light Infantry motto is Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj ki Jai. And the troops of the regiment come from all over Maharashtra, and they are actually truly today the ancestors of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj who protect the boundaries of this country. What we will talk today will be on Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's military tactics and as to how they are relevant today. Now, today Shiva Srushti has been inaugurated in Pune by the Home Minister of the country, Shri Amit Shah. It's a beautiful kind of a museum which has been created, which depicts the history of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, and anybody and everybody who is interested with Shivaji Maharaj must visit this place. Sanskriti Adhyasan Kendra, which is a unit of Sanskriti Foundation, and Shivaji Spurti Kendra at Sri Sailam, which is about 4 hours away from Hyderabad, had conducted a seminar, call it a national conference on Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Statecraft Lessons for Modern India. Many facets of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's personality and his Hindi Swarajya were presented in this conference by more than 35 experts, and it went on for 2 days. I was present in this national conference and I was asked to speak on Shivaji Maharaj, his armed forces, his ordnance management, his military strategy and military tactics. I will cover a part of the presentation which I gave there in today's talk. What I will talk about today will be 4 major aspects. I talk about which was the enemy then, Mughal Shah, Adil Shahi, Qutub Shahi army which Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj fought. Which is the enemy today? It is China and Pakistan. What was the organization of Shivaji Maharaj as army? What was the organization of the Mughal army? What was the way by which the Mughals fought the war and launched various campaigns against Shivaji Maharaj? What were the battle tactics of Mughal Shahi and the other armies? And most important is, how did Shivaji Maharaj fight them? He analyzed the weaknesses of the Mughal army and evolved tactics which were relevant in those days. Shivaji Maharaj was a statesman of outstanding ability. He was energetic, enterprising, far-sighted and secretive in his operations. His operations were always kept secret, and enemy came to know about it only when they were attacked, thereby achieving complete surprise. He had a lively imagination. He used it to evolve different tactics for different occasions. He had profound common sense and he used it in very many crisis situations. He possessed and created an Maratha army, an instrument of war which suited his military genius and suited the time, that was the 16th and the 17th century, where he was fighting the Mughals, the Adil Shah and the Qutub Shah. He was a strict disciplinarian and a marvelous organizer. He knew how to organize its army, how to organize its finances, how to have weapon system which suited that time, how to carry out his ordnance management, etc. Throughout his life, he never lost sight of his aim, which was to have Swarajya. He was optimistic and possessed indomitable spirit which could neither be quelled by the by his adversary nor by the success. He was never dismotivated when he faced setbacks. He did not just bask in the glory when he won a glorious victory, but prepared himself for the next battle, the next campaign. So he was always ready to face situation as and when they came. He did not only bask in the glory of whatever he had won. He was not only a leader of the men, but he was also their brain, and he was actually the Maratha army. He His personality was magnetic, and anybody who came in contact with him knew him very well. Was his heart was stirred, and he made them do heroic deeds. The well-being of his soldier was his constant concern. He always won their trust and devotion by leading from the front, and also by his daily concern for their welfare and happiness. In fact, his concept of leading from the front even today is utilized by the Indian Army, in which the Indian Army officers, whichever regiment they belong to, lead from the front, whether it is anti-terrorist operations in Jammu and Kashmir, northeast or elsewhere. Whatever wars we fought, and let's talk about the last war, the Kargil war, in which our officer casualties were very heavy because the officers led from the front, whether it was capturing of Tiger Hill or capturing of other important wickets. He rose naturally to be the king of Marathas because the men saw him that he was fit to be a king. He had the highest moral virtues and outlook towards women. He always respected women, and women were very safe in his kingdom. He had an extraordinary respect for them. He abhorred rape, violence, and punished anybody who disobeyed his orders. That was something which was very uncommon in those days. All in all, he was a military genius and all-time great hero that all Indians need to study and follow. Whatever tactics he used at that point of time are also relevant today. In this particular presentation, in this part, I will carry out an analysis of the Mughal army. I'll also carry out analysis of the way they fought, and we will also analyze as to how this weakness was used by Shivaji Maharaj. Shivaji Maharaj created tactics and strategy which suited the area in which he operated. He understood that he could not fight the Mughal army in the plains, so therefore he restricted his fighting inside the mountain ranges of the Western Ghats, also called as Sahyadri mountain, Sahyadri Ghat, etc. Now, he did not want to enter the plains because he knew he will find it difficult to fight pitched battles with the Mughals. The enemy then was Mughal Shah, Adil Shah, Qutub Shah, and there were many subversive elements. He studied the armies of the enemy, he studied their strategy, studied their tactics, he had a look at their strong points, he understood their weak points, and thereafter he organized his army and evolved an Indian way of fighting, a Maratha way of fighting, an innovative strategy and tactics to outmaneuver his enemy. A brief analysis is what we will do presently. The infantry of the Mughals was considered an inferior arm. They had strong cavalry, and their cavalry and the army was deployed in various subas, that is various states, and on the forts. Their weapons were swords and matchlock, etc. And they had a paramilitary force called Shihabandi. Now, what was important was that the infantry was used for guarding the Badshah, it was used for guarding forts, it was used to guard various subas. Similarly, the cavalry was also used for the same job. So therefore, the most of the army of Mughals was deployed for protecting its kingdom, that is for the defensive battles, and this left a very small army to fight an offensive battle. In fact, whatever campaigns the Mughal Sardar like like Afzal Khan or Shahiste Khan or others did, the army at that point of time was to the tune of 50 to 60,000 cavalry and also certain infantry. The cavalry was the strongest point of the Mughal army because the cavalry was one that was used by the invaders who came from the Khyber Pass. This was the most powerful arm, and the cavalry of the Mughals could be divided into two parts: the Ahadis cavalry, which was employed directly by the emperor, and the Mansabdars, which were required to maintain certain amount of cavalry as per their standing. The weapons used by the cavalry were swords, shields, long bow, etc. And the mounts which the cavalry used were the Turki mounts, the Tazis, the Yabus. The breeds were mostly foreign. While Shivaji Maharaj used breeds that was local, these breeds which were used locals were, though while they could be called as tattus, meaning they were inferior in terms of strength and let's say speed to the foreign breeds, but they were suited to the mountainous terrain of Sahyadri or the Western Ghat. They were hardy and could live off the land. The next arm of the Mughals was artillery. Mughals believed in heavy artillery. They had super heavy artillery. This was mainly used inside the fort for protection, and it had a projectile up to 100 kilograms. This was used for firing at the enemy when enemy attacked the forts. They had also an artillery called as the siege artillery, which was used for capturing forts. What they used to do was they used to carry out siege of the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's fort, then deploy artillery, fire the artillery. The shots ranged from in the region of 50 to 70 kg, and this was used to break the walls of the forts, and thereafter the infantry and the cavalry would charge. Now Shivaji Maharaj somehow did not believe too much in the artillery because his entire battle depended upon the speed. So therefore he used he did not want heavy artillery which bogged down his speed of movement. So therefore he was always fast moving and was able to move, cover long distances, attack from a different direction, attack at night time, carry out an attack, carry out a raid, then again disappear. This was also called as the Ganimi Kawa. Now, because of this, artillery was not used as a major arm by Shivaji Maharaj, though certain artillery pieces were definitely deployed in the forts which was used to fire upon the enemies. Elephants was a major component of the Mughal army because elephants were considered as a status symbol and importance of the Sardars who were there. But these elephants were cause of many defeats. First, they could be identified easily. Secondly, they could be neutralized by long-range weapons such as bows and arrows, and attacking elephants and making them run amok were the common tactics used to defeat the elephants or the elephants in the Mughal army. However, the elephants, the camels and the horses were also used for towing heavy artillery and was used for carrying out maintenance both during peacetime and during the campaigning season. But elephants were very uncommon in Shivaji Maharaj's army, though there are reports that one knows that when his coronation was done at Raigad, there was elephant which was used there. An elephant, a baby elephant had been got to the fort of Raigad many years earlier because a full-grown elephant could not cross over, could not go through the gates of the fort which were there. Now elephants was, so therefore elephants were used mostly for administration and also the status symbol by the Mughals. Now as far as the Mughals were concerned, the strength of the army was quite large. In fact, they were one of the largest armies at that point of time. Very huge army, they had lot of resources, they had been ruling the country for a long time, and it was said that the Mughal army had about 2 lakh horsemen, but available immediately were about 50 to 60,000, and about 10 to 15,000 infantry was available. Similarly, the Adil Shah and the Qutub Shah fielded an cavalry of 30,000, and they had about 5 to 6,000 of the infantry. They did not have a standard uniform, and the soldiers belonged to various ethnic groups. Hence, the teamwork, the cohesiveness, the leadership was lacking. Now, I'll very briefly talk about as to how the Mughals used carried out campaigns against Shivaji Maharaj. The Mughal army was like a mobile city. During campaigns, they used to have 1 lakh foot soldiers, 50,000 cavalry, etc. The Bazar Budges, or the sellers of the food, far exceeded the combatants. Their number was almost 3 to 4 times that of the soldiers. So 5 lakh could be the Bazar Budges. They used to have lots of camels. They used to have camels were to the tune of 50,000 or 3,000 elephants when the big campaigns were there. So this created a lot of drag as far as the fighting was concerned. The supply required for the Mughal horses was about 6 to 7 kgs per day, while the Maratha horses barely required 2 kgs. The soldiers required about 2 to 3 kgs, but the Maratha soldiers lived off the land, as it was called. The horsemen required 70 to 80 tons per 10,000 horses. This was a great drag on movement, and roads were necessary for the artillery. So many a times artillery had to be left behind, but it had to be protected. So it offered a good target for Marathas for carrying out raid. Their long lines of supplies were not secure, and therefore they also were a target for carrying out attacks. At that time there were no roads, but the plains of North India were suitable for pitched battles. But Shivaji Maharaj ensured that the Mughal army was lured into the Western Ghats, into the terrain that was very unsuitable for the Mughal army. The bigger rivers had to be crossed at the forts and the ferries, and the bridges were very few. Afterwards, when the Peshwas came, crossing rivers was a very important issue, and that is where Bajirao Peshwa excelled. The speed of the army was to the tune of 30 kilometers per day. In a week, they used to march for 5 days, and 2 days horse was taken. The long campaign thereby exhausted the soldiers. There were many stragglers. The weather and the climate always played a very major role. At times, Mughals of course could do what was called as short burst, but that was very, very uncommon. So before ending this presentation, all that I want to tell you is that the Mughals had a very elaborate system of administration, elaborate system of movement, etc. And this actually was their weaknesses, which was exploited by Shivaji Maharaj. As far as the battle tactics were concerned, the battle tactics which the Mughals used, the other weaknesses which the Mughal army had, we will talk about it in the part 2 of the presentation. I will stop here today, but I need to tell you that the tactics used by Shivaji Maharaj analyzed the battle tactics of the Mughals very, very well, and therefore he was able to defeat them in many battles. I'll stop here. Thank you, and Jai Hind.